Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Your Business in HD. I am your host, Jen Dice, human design coach and marketing strategist for entrepreneurs, and I help women in business get crystal clear on who they are so they can infuse more of their strengths, talents, and gifts into the work that they do and truly shine their light out to elevate their impact and their income. So welcome to this episode. Today, I'm going to be chatting with you guys all about using human design to create transformation in your business. And many of us have been in business. If you're listening to this, likely you're in business, you've been running a business for a while, you're an entrepreneur, and you have likely gone through many transformations in the process to get to where you are today. But today I want to zero in and focus in a little bit more on how you could kind of amplify that a little bit and leverage pieces of who you are to help guide you in the process as you're creating not just that transformation for yourself, but also that transformation that you provide for the people that you serve, for your clients, for your customers, through your offers, through your business. And so if you're hopping on now, I want you to think back on a couple of key things. So think back to key points in your business journey that you've had different pivots or transformational moments, or you took action on some things, those transformations that have happened along the way. I want you to kind of reflect on those for a minute as you're listening to this. And even after you're listening to this episode, just think back to where those pivotal moments happened for you on your journey. And even kind of think along the lines of where you were, what you were doing, and what actually motivated you or lit that fire for you to take that action. Another question I want you to kind of reflect on, we're doing a little reflection moment in the beginning of this episode, but so now as you're listening to this, what thoughts or ideas have you had in the back of your mind? Because we all are in this place where every season, every shift, every period or point in your business, you've always, if you're like me, you've always got a million ideas going at the moment, but not all of those ideas stick or stay with you. So my question to you is what have you been kind of thinking on? What thoughts, what ideas have you kind of just had turning in the back of your mind that you just sort of keep coming back to? And then with those ideas, with those thoughts, do you know what your next steps are? Do you know what actions to take? Do you know what your thoughts are to what is the next right step for you? Or are you just still continuing to kind of stay in this kind of moment of just kind of thinking on things, or just journaling on it, or just really processing these ideas? So if this is something that you've had in the back of your mind, or you've had different ideas, or you've had things that you just kind of keep circling back to or keep coming back to, the reason I bring that up is because usually when we have those ideas, they're not flash in the pan ideas. They're ideas that kind of keep circling back to us. Either we've had those ideas in the past, or we've had them previously and we just kind of brushed them off and set them off to the side. And then something happened that triggered that idea or that memory, or that moment of, that's right, I was thinking about that before. Something along the lines kind of triggers you or zeroes in your focus back on that idea again. So it's one of those things where even if you put it off to the side, it might keep showing up in your business or just in your thoughts. So that's something I want you to kind of think on, to kind of focus on, because sometimes those ideas that keep showing up, or you see, maybe you have the idea, you push it off to the side, don't have time, don't have the energy, don't know if it's right for me. So you just kind of set it off to the side. And somebody else kind of you connect with somebody, and they're either living out and doing that idea, or they tell you that this would be a great idea for you. Some way, shape, or form, the universe just really brings that idea and plasters it right back in front of your face again. So if that is you and you can relate to that, raise your hand. I know I've had those moments before too. And it's just one of those things where when those things keep coming back to us, that's when we should zero in on it and just pay more attention to it. I'm not saying you should jump on it or do it or whatever, because that's really something that's up to you. And this really reminds me too, and this could be, these could also be things or decisions that you're just maybe hesitating on or delaying taking action on or pulling the trigger on or something like that, where you know you need to make a decision on something, or maybe you even know what the decision is, but you haven't really like taken the action that you need to take. And that kind of brings me back to like these moments that I had before I had my business. So my history before I came into the online space, I was a physical therapist. I worked as a therapist for 13 years. Most of those years, the better part, over a decade of those 13 years was spent working in a community hospital, in a hospital setting. And over time, just like, it was just this unalignment with that position, with that role, knowing that there was more out there for me. But it was this idea, and I always had this idea to start this business in the back of my mind, but it was something I just kept putting off. I just kept like pushing it off. I kept brushing it off. Maybe I would dip my toe in and learn or read a little bit more, but then I would just push it off to the side. And what happened was I kept like staying in this place that I was pretty much outgrown. So if you think of like, like, what is it? Is it a snail or a crab where they have to like find a bigger shell because they outgrow their shells? It's kind of like trying to stuff yourself inside of a shell that no longer fits you. That's more like at an emotional level too, where you just feel so boxed in. And I just kept that feeling of being boxed in and frustrated with the work and knowing that I wasn't in the right place, but yet not taking action on what I needed to take action on. And what ended up happening is like, these ideas, they keep coming back to you, or in many ways, you actually will be given the, I want to say the universe will actually like kind of hand you like you have no choice but to take action. And for me, this happened a couple of times in that job role, which actually literally the universe showed up for me in those moments when I was working in that job. When I felt like there was no way out, I literally would sit in the parking lot on some mornings and cry, or like just until the last minute, until I had to go in, until I had to clock in for my shift. And like, there was a day where I literally like prayed in the morning for an alternative. I prayed for another option. I prayed for a way out. And that day I went to work and was literally like, I'm not kidding you, working my normal day, pulled off to the side, or actually just my supervisor at the time asked me if I had a second. That was how it was presented to me. Do you have a second? And so her and I went and sat down in this closed off, stuffy, no window office. And it was one of those moments that completely blindsided me, because the ultimatum that I got that day was this clinic, it was a clinic I was working in at the time, isn't busy enough to support the amount of therapists we have here. So your options are, if you want to if you want to keep your job, or if you don't want anybody else to get their hours reduced or have their job put at risk, we are going to transition you or move you to a completely different clinic, which was way further away from where my childcare was. And that was like one of those moments of, I asked for it. I asked for the ability to make that change, but it was just that ultimatum in that moment of, I had to take action. I had to do something. And from that meeting, what ended up happening was, I couldn't move to this other clinic. It would have put me 45 minutes to an hour away from where my kids were. The commute time was ridiculous to get my kids to school and then drive a completely huge amount of distance to get to this other, like, it was awful. And so I think what I ended up doing was, the answer that came to me in that moment was in order to keep my job there, I negotiated a lower amount of hours during the week, but picked up more weekends in the hospital, which I knew at the time is what they needed the most. And the other therapists that worked in the clinic did not like to work in the hospital setting, the hospital side of things. So I was one that shifted between, for a period of time, I was working in the outpatient clinics. I was doing outpatient work. And then I also had a lot of experience in the inpatient world. And I didn't mind working in the hospital, working on the hospital floor. It just was a trade-off. So that was my trade-off. And that was the answer that came to me. If I wanted to stay at this location, these were the new rules I was going to be offering or negotiating to stay there. But that in that moment, in that meeting with that supervisor, the voice in the back of my mind was, this will never happen to me again. Never. And from that day, that was the catalyst that, yes, my whole like schedule changed. I started working every other weekend. You know, it was what I had to do at the time to stay close to my kids, to get by, but it also allowed me that ability to open myself up to, okay, what are my next steps? How am I going to make sure that this does not ever happen to me again? And that's kind of what led me ultimately to starting my business, kind of slowly starting to get into my business, and stepping my way out of that job. So that was a long story, but to say of like, so thoughts and ideas, things that you turn over and over and over in your mind, if it happens long enough, you're going to get handed an ultimatum. Maybe it's not like mine, but you're going to be presented with, I have no choice. I have to make a decision on this. What's it going to be? And some of those things, especially when it's really important and it's really something that's a part of your greater purpose and the work that you're doing, which ultimately where I sit today and the work that I'm doing, I had to go through that to get to where I'm at today. And so that's just like one example of creating a transformation. At the time, I didn't know like what human design was, but I was starting to listen more to myself and get out of my head and the logic that I was trying to like, well, you went to school for all these years, you have this degree. You can't just leave, like, this is who you are. You're a PT. You can't just leave this job. You can't just leave this career. This is what you told everybody you were going to do. And this is what you're supposed to do. This is who you are. And that's bullshit. Like those are the things that I want you to start calling bullshit on, especially if you've got these ideas, these amazing ideas that are circling around in your consciousness, in your awareness, and you're maybe not taking action on them. So that was a long story. I gave you a couple of things to think about when we're looking at using your human design to create transformation in your business. So bring us back to today. So today, how can you now take some of those thought reflecting questions I gave you in the beginning of this episode, and how can we work on breaking these things down so that you can walk away with some action steps? Again, I'll just caveat too, if you are completely new to human design and you're like, this sounds amazing, but what is human design? How can I get started with it? I will drop a link that goes with this video, and it will give you, it's my HD start guide. It will give you everything that you need to get started with your human design. And it's a great like jumping off point. So you can, number one, uncover your human design chart, know what it is, figure it out. And it comes with some trainings that will help you not just uncover your human design, but also start applying it to your life and your business. So that would be one reference I will have you go to as soon as you get done with this episode listening to this. But here are some key takeaways. Either way, whatever you're looking at, whatever you're facing in your business, especially if you have one of those ideas I was talking about that just keeps like showing up, like for some reason you brush it off and the universe just keeps like plastering it like on a billboard as you're driving down the highway. Like you just can't ignore the signs that you're seeing, what people are telling you anymore. And it's just this inner drive, this inner excitement in you, but you maybe just haven't like taken action on it because you're not sure if it's the next right thing for you. So here are a couple of takeaways. And this is something that I do with myself. This is something that I would like talk to you as if you were one of my clients and we were working together. These are some of the takeaways of some of the action steps and questions I want you to ask yourself in this moment. So number one, when you're looking at something like this in your business, especially if it's a new idea, especially if it's like this craving to kind of shift or transition something in your business, the first thing I want you to ask yourself is, where are you leaning too much into the strategy? Strategy, again, because while strategy is important and it's a big part of how we like create the structure that we operate from, the systems, the processes, the workflows, the things that streamline us and our abilities to get things done, the things that support us, that structure that supports us. That's what strategy is a part of that. And it is important, but I also want you to know it's only going to get you so far. So when you're leaning too heavily into the strategy, you're putting a lot of your trust, a lot of your thinking, a lot of your next steps into something that is completely external from you. So it's kind of like, have you ever had those like moments where you've been on a road trip and you're somewhere where it's not, and you're not in a familiar place, and you plug something into the GPS, whether it's like Google Maps or whatever, and for whatever reason, the directions are incorrect. And you do exactly what your car tells, what your phone, what your GPS tells you to do, turn left here, turn right here, and you are blindly following this GPS, because, you know, most of the time it's correct, but have you ever been in that situation where you've plugged in where you're going, and maybe you typed it in wrong, maybe whatever, but you ended up in, it's happened to me before too, where I was on a trip to a conference with another a group of friends, and we ended up in a deserted parking lot off a back road, and we're like, this is not our hotel. So have you ever ended up in one of those situations where you plugged in the coordinates or your information into the GPS and you blindly followed it and you ended up not where you're supposed to be? So that is where, when you lean into the strategy too much, it's like stuff like that happens where you're just like, what the hell happened? Where am I? How did I get here? Like, this is not right. And so it's kind of like that. So that's why strategy, while it's important, while GPS is important, while some of those things are important to provide the structure that we like work from, it's only going to get you so far. The second question I want you to ask yourself is, how can you quiet your mind? So this is something where once you look and see where you've been putting a lot of your like trust and guidance and like putting a lot of your energy into things externally from you, outside of you, now it's time to like, what are ways that you can work on like just quieting your mind? When you take conscious efforts to quiet your mind, and that means like getting away from other like maybe conversations or other thoughts that you're having, just quieting your mind, grounding yourself, literally breathing, meditating. Just if you are kind of in this cycle where your brain is going and busy, quieting your mind, because that mind, it's like, it's kind of like when you quiet your mind, it's kind of like turning off a TV that's been blaring loud music or loud noise in the background all day. And it's when you hit that off button, you can hear all the other sounds around you. Or it's when you step outside and you turn off like whatever you're listening to on your phone, or you just step outside by yourself, away from the chaos of whatever else is going on inside the house. You step outside and it allows you to hear like the wind blowing through the leaves in the trees. You can hear the birds, you can hear the breeze, you can hear just the sounds around you. Versus all of the noise that you were just kind of taking in. So that's kind of what it's like. And it helps eliminate that noise so you can kind of go inward and focus a little bit more on yourself. And that's kind of the third question, is how can you tap into your inner guidance? So this is where human design comes in, because when you know and understand your human design type, your human design strategy, and your human design authority, your authority is that inner guidance that's going to help guide you. So when you know, and we all have a different human design type, and then we all kind of, as you go down through the layers of your human design, your type, your strategy, and your authority, we all have a different way in which we are designed to make decisions from an internal perspective versus what does the strategy say? What does my coach say? What does the book say? What does so-and-so say I should be doing? Kind of eliminating that noise. And your inner authority is what's going to lead you in the correct direction. So it's kind of like you're trusting like the most updated map in the world, not the outdated version of Google or whatever GPS that puts you and your friends in a deserted parking lot when you're trying to find your hotel. That's kind of what it's like. And so trusting that inner guidance, like that is where, from a human design perspective, when you're looking at you're looking through your personal design as that lens for your business, for making those decisions, especially when it's something that has been showing up for you multiple times as an idea, as something to pay attention to, as something to make a decision on. Odds are it's just a matter of figuring out the best way that you can quiet the noise around you and tune into yourself, your inner guidance, to help not just, and maybe it's not just like, you're not going to see the entire like 500 steps of what this decision is going to create for you, but you're going to get clarity on, okay, this idea has been showing up for me multiple times in the last 3 months, 6 months, month, whatever. What is the next right step for me? Or this is what I think I should do. Is this right for me? Yes or no? And it really depends on what your authority is. Whatever your authority is for human design, that's how you're going to frame that question, frame that lens, and what you're going to put things through. That's how you're going to look inward to yourself. And so that's something where if you click the link below that comes with this video and grab that information and that free gift, it will help kind of walk you through a little bit of that to get you started. So that you can kind of take this question that I'm giving you in this video to that next step. So I hope this was helpful in understanding just a different way or a different lens in which you can look at these ideas that keep showing up for you and ways that you can tune out the things that are external to you. We still want the strategy. We still want the structure for our business. That's a piece of it, but it's not the entire piece of it. That's one thing that I do see so many of my clients, and something that I have also still kind of catch myself doing, is leaning into these things that are external of myself, leaning into the strategy way too much and kind of abandoning what I feel is right for me or the best next step for me. And ultimately, that's what you want to do. If you want to create that ultimate, like continuing to create these transformations in your business, but doing it with more intention instead of, because when you look back and see some of the other transitions you made, you kind of get to this point of like, yeah, okay, well, this happened. And you can kind of see the patternings around some of those transformations of your past. But now with a tool, like something like with human design, and understanding yourself and how you're designed to make decisions going forward, and doing so in a much more aligned space, doing so in a much more anchored way. When you're anchored into yourself, you make those decisions with so much more clarity and so much more confidence, and you kind of stop that little hamster in your brain, because most of us are not designed to make decisions from logic. The logic helps, but we're not designed to make that decision as like an ultimate yes or no based on our logic. We're designed to take that data, take that logic, and input that into your authority, into your human design authority, that bigger inner guidance, that compass that we all have, we all were born with. And that's what's going to guide you to make the next right decision for you. But again, keeping in mind that logic might kick up, that ego might kick up and say, well, you can't do that because of this, or you can't do that because of that. And that's where diving into a little bit more of your human design to overcome some of those things, so that you really can take ownership in the skills that you bring to your business, the gifts that you bring to your clients, and the ways that, and the bigger purpose and the bigger light that you have to shine to the world through your business and through the work that you do. When you dive in a little bit deeper into your human design, that's where you can get into doing some of that work, so that you can take those steps with that clarity, with that confidence, in spite of what your logical brain might say, when you know it's the next right step for you. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope this episode was helpful for you. If this brought up more questions and answers, again, feel free, click the link that comes with this training, with this video. It is going to be the best way that I recommend you get started with uncovering your human design, and just a couple of action steps to start applying it into your life and into your business. And as always, if you have questions for me, feel free to reach out. You can, if you're in my email community, you can hit reply to any email, and I am on the other end of those emails. Or if you are watching this video on social or whatever, just feel free to reach out, message me. I am happy to answer any questions related to your specific human design and applying it to your business and your life. All right, guys, thanks again so much for joining me, and I will catch you on the next episode of Your Business in HD. Bye now.